The video hit 1 million views in 2 hours. I mean, it was just insanity. I did a 60-second video and I said, I've been in Western medicine for over 18 years and I've never dewormed myself until now. I was in so much pain and I couldn't get an answer. I hadn't gone to the bathroom for 30 days, gone poop for 30 days. It was so uncomfortable.
Our next guest, Kim Rogers, goes by the moniker the Worm Queen. She does not grow worms on her arms, but she does have expertise with all types of parasites.
You think you're craving salt, sugar, and if you are like an extreme amount or after 7 p.m., you have a parasite. And you could have anything from candida, which we all have yeast in our body, and especially during the holidays because we all eat a lot of sugar, it can develop into something called candida, which is a parasite. A parasite definition is anything that feeds off the host, or in Latin terms, an unwanted dinner guest. They're stealing up to 90% of our nutrients at any part of our body. That means that
Hi, my name is Chris Burris. I'm a longevity expert and the chief scientist at a lab focused on a longevity molecule. My primary focus is to help people live longer and better lives with science. Make sure to subscribe and share so you and your friends can live longer and better, so you and your friends can live beyond the norms.
Hi, and welcome to the next episode of the Live Beyond the Norms Health and Longevity podcast. Have you ever been on social media and watched a really gross video? Maybe it was the guy who claims ticks have infested his arm or leg, or maybe you've watched some gross pimple popping, or maybe pictures of worms. If you have ever been caught in this visual trap, what if I told you some of that grossness could be inside of you right now? If this is true, you probably want to make sure that you know how to get rid of it right away, and you also want to make sure that you stay for this entire episode. Our next guest, Kim Rogers, goes by the moniker the Worm Queen. She does not grow worms on her arms, but she does have expertise with all types of parasites. A little bit about Kim. Her associates is in medical specialties with a bachelor's in healthcare management. She has taught in the traditional medical system and actually ran 25 separate healthcare colleges. She has authored books in the medical health space. Today, she is the voice in front of her 300,000 plus followers. That's probably changed since I wrote this. On Instagram, over 500,000 on TikTok. She is here to talk about worms or parasites you probably have in your body and what to do about them. Kim, thank you for joining us today.
Thanks, Chris. That was really great.
So before we jump in to your area of expertise, I want to go further back. I want to go like much further back. What was it like growing up, little Kim? Where did you grow up? What were your parents like? And then if there was some event or someone you could pinpoint as the reason you would ultimately become a person famous for parasites coming out of their body and subsequently helping others get parasites out of their bodies, what or who would that be? And I know that's a bunch, but if we could throw that all together, please.
Sure. Okay, well, I was born in September, almost in a van down by the river. No, I'm just kidding. No, but I was almost born in a van. I was really in a hurry to get here, I think is what my mom said. So, well, I grew up in a very strict environment. My dad was a colonel and
of what branch?
Air Force. He was a colonel in nuclear missiles.
Too. Oh my God.
Really?
That's why we get along so well. Yeah, he was at his last job was at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base.
Okay.
At one point he was at the Pentagon, stationed at the Pentagon. We moved every 2 years. You probably had a very similar experience. But they kept moving us to the same damn place. So back to your colonel.
Same. So my dad was in South Dakota. We went to South Dakota a few times. I grew up in Rapid City. I was born in California, and then my parents moved us to Rapid City, and then we moved to Nebraska, then back to Rapid City. Because when you're dealing with nukes, you can't really leave the country. So we never got to leave the country because he had the knowledge. He actually carried the football for a while. That was part of his job.
What is the football? What's the football?
It's where so one has a code, and then one holds it and puts the code in if we're going to launch.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So he like went with the president places. And so, but he never wanted to live in DC. So we were never going to live in DC. So when he left, he didn't want to be a general. He just wanted to finishing like the base that he was at. And then he retired. So he was like, okay, I'm out.
It may be true that my dad funded the program your dad was in,
Oh
because
my
my
gosh.
dad used to talk about funding programs where they would put the budget in front of him and they would say, "This needs your signature." And he would go, "What is this?" And they would say, "You can't know, but it still needs your signature." That would be like your dad's type of program. That's pretty cool.
Probably. I mean, my dad did a lot of like underground military things that to this day he goes, I can't talk about them all, but what I can talk about, and then he tells us, and we're like, oh my God, how did you do all of that and then land and then eat meatloaf with your family? Like, what kind of mindset did you have to go from to and then sit down with your family? Like, that's just wild to me to
Yeah.
be able to like turn that on and off, the things that he would tell us that he could do and not do. And I'm like, oh man, but I know for a fact that's where I got all this structure from. Because
Mm,
now as I'm older and I'm looking back and like hanging out with my dad, he's a commissioner in Nevada and he teaches concealed weapons and he's so structured. And I'm like, oh, this is where I get it from.
yeah.
Like, oh, okay, I get it now.
That's now me.
Yeah, totally. I'm like, well, maybe I can be a little nicer, like I'm looking back and I'm like, all
It's
right.
funny you just jumped from structured to nicer.
I know. I'm pretty structured. I mean, to be able to like create what I've created, like I look back and I just think of how wild what this journey in the last not even 4 years. And
Yeah.
I think that when people see me and I talk, they think that I've been doing this for a really long time, but really, I would say it kicked into high gear in the last year, specifically because I was still pretty ill over the last few
Mm,
years. I would say that probably around September of last year is when I really started to get my stride with my health back. And
mm,
I'm never going to come on social media and be like, oh my gosh, I don't feel well, like ever. But there were years now, even when you've watched me, if you go back and look at me when I first went viral in 2021, I don't look like this still.
mm.
Like I still look unhealthy. And it is because I was still fighting parasites. I was living in mold and had no idea about that until a year into me going viral. I found out we're living in mold. And then I also have chronic Lyme. And I didn't know that until 2023. And as soon as I found out I had chronic Lyme, that's when I started to really blossom my health more. I started getting into HBOT and more cleansing and different herbs. And so really it's been a journey for me in front of the camera while I've been in the back end running this huge business that, we make our own kits. We do our own parasite cleanse. We do a mold kit because I had mold poisoning. And now we're coming out with our lymphatic kit, which also helps with Lyme. So I'm like, okay, no more chronic illnesses, please, because I don't know if I have time and space to make any more kits for them. And so, it just has ended up being a wild ride, but I have enjoyed it. And it's been super fun meeting people like you. And this year, I feel like I'm getting out and about more into society where before I used to do all of this. I used to work 80 hours a week. I traveled 3 weeks out of the month. I would go places and still work. I was getting my second degree, which, by the way, both of my degrees, I was valedictorian, had no idea on either of those degrees. I just really like to learn and I just really like to share my knowledge with people. This is the way I've been. That's why I was such a good professor and I had to leave because my health kept declining. And
Mm.
when you're working and living in the medical world, it is kind of difficult because sometimes you see behind the veil. And I saw that no doctor could figure out what was really wrong with me.
All
I
right,
had,
before we go down that,
yeah.
let's roll back a little bit. So
Okay.
your degrees are kind of health focused, right? And kind of
Yeah.
did you always know, like in middle of high school, you're like, I'm going to go study this, or like how did that evolve?
Well, middle high school, I was a stoner. So,
There's that. Good news though, no
there was
worms in pot.
for real. For real. No worms in pot. I mean, my mom was chronically ill growing up, so I always wanted to be able to assist her, and I really liked vitamins and herbs, and I liked the plant medicine of all kinds, and so it really something was drawn, and I think that was like my higher self telling me like keep into it, keep someday you're gonna make something of this. I used to roll my own clove cigarettes, so I've always been kind of involved in it. But then when I worked for an airline for 5 years, and then after 9/11, it really became kind of strange to work in the airline industry. And so I really wanted something that was steady and consistent. And I didn't have to worry about if I got laid off, because after 9/11, they would just literally serve you papers and that was it. Like you had like 24 hours to decide if you're going to take a package or not. And you're like, okay, I'm 20 something years old. What am I doing? You know? And so I decided to go into school and go back to college. And when I went into my first college, I didn't want to do nursing. I didn't want to just be a medical assistant. I wanted to do something that was more than just a general practice. So that's why I went into medical specialties. So my specialty is neurology and endocrinology. And then I also have worked in as an x-ray tech. I've worked in the ER. I've worked in urgent care. I've worked in family care, which I'm not a fan of. And surprisingly enough, I left urgent care because I hate parasites. And here I am.
So you have this very unique perspective, right? You're working
Yeah.
in traditional, you're even kind of writing conventional medical books for the conventional
Right.
medical system.
I'm sick.
And then you're sick, right? So just talk about that transition, because you know this I've had enough interviews. This transition doesn't really go smoothly. Like your peers are like, what are you talking about? Where are you going? Talk about like how you start educating yourself. What really convinced you? I think there was one case even that was really kind of paramount for you.
So I had stage 4 endometriosis. I had 13 total surgeries. I had 5 surgeries, and then I had a hysterectomy, and then I had 5 more surgeries after that hysterectomy for endometriosis, beginning stages of cervical cancer, and it just spread throughout my whole body. And I would ask a lot of questions. I got to watch my own surgery videos. I got to see pictures, and some things just never sat right with me when I would look at them. And I would say, you know, that looks kind of suspicious. Like it's oblique. Like, why is that thing kind of a weird moving thing? Like, what's going on here? And so they could never give me an answer. And that's okay. Like, I understand. And I believe we need Western medicine. So when I say all of these things, I genuinely believe that there is a place for Western medicine, but it is not to heal you. It is to save your life and to assist you, but it is not to heal you. And that is something that I had to learn the hard way over the last few years. So I went through all of these surgeries. I'm doing all of the schooling. I'm doing all of the traveling, and I'm still very ill. And so my husband and I moved to Washington State from Nevada because they have more alternative type of medicine here when it comes to herbs, and they're a lot more educated, and mushrooms and those type of things, right? And
So hold on
so,
a second. So
yeah,
my parents are from Oregon
okay.
originally, and what they say is people who are too weird for California go to Oregon or Washington. And so you're saying that Nevada was actually more kind of open-minded even than Washington.
No, they're very conservative minded when it comes to
Oh,
medicine. Washington is very open minded when
okay,
it
good.
comes to
Okay,
medicine
I
and
misheard that.
alternative type treating. Oregon, they're saying is let's keep it weird. Oregon does definitely keep it weird, but Washington is a little more Western medicine
Mm.
structured. Like during 2020, very Western medicine structured here in the state of Washington. But they have pockets of people that understand things like hyperbaric chamber oxygen therapy,
Mm.
NADIV, ketamine, those type of things, stellate ganglia blocks, all of these things that I'm saying have helped me get to where I'm at. I've done therapeutic plasma exchange. All of those things have been here for a really long time, where you go to Nevada and they just want to cut on you. They don't understand. Not so much now. Like, I saw a huge change since I've lived here, but living there, being sick, having my professional colleagues really not understand why I was questioning things. And I would get the stink eye. And I actually, since I've gone viral, I have lost quite a few colleague friends. And that's why
Wow.
I'm so thankful for everyone that has like welcomed me into this world on this side of things, because I did lose that community, especially when I went viral in 2021. I had a lot of doctors reach out to me that were my colleagues, or when I was a professor, I would give I would get their students, right? I would have students, and then I would give them the best students. If they were my doctors, they got the best students because I would have to go to them. And I obviously wanted the best care for myself. And so I really did a huge service in the Nevada area when it came to supplying smart, intelligent people, because I am a smart person, and I know I am. I mean, it's just a matter of I just don't agree with their thought process, and you should be more open-minded. And I feel like we're really getting to that point here with a medical awakening and understanding what medical freedom looks like. And that's really the way we need to be here in at least the United States. Like, that's where our society needs to be. And so I feel like some of them are coming around. A few of them have cleansed and seen some worms, and have messaged me back and been like, okay, Kim, yep, this is a thing. Let's go ahead and introduce
nothing
this.
will make you a believer more than seeing worms coming out of your body. Yeah. That's like
Totally. And when it happened to me, I was very much alone. Like, what is happening here? Like, I had no idea this was a thing. I never wrote it into curriculum. I never trained. I mean, I might have trained some lab technicians for like 3 minutes. You get 3 minutes to look at the stool. If there isn't anything moving, if you don't see anything abnormal, and you can't guarantee the structure of the DNA that you're seeing, then it's negative. But you have to put at the bottom of the lab slip, this is not in lieu of a parasitic infection. So anyone that's ever gotten their stool checked for parasites at like LabCorp or Quest, it's going to say that at the bottom. One, for liability purposes, and two, because that person just did not know without a shadow of a doubt, and there isn't a nervousness of malpractice, that in fact you had a parasite. So they got 3 minutes to look at it. The stool sat outside or sat in, luke or room temp, and it wasn't like preserved super great. And so it just moves on, right? And so that's really kind of where they get defensive in Western medicine, because we don't have good testing, which is so wild to me that we live in 2025 and we cannot get good parasite and mold testing. Like, come on, you guys. Seriously. Because the thing is that what we're talking about with worms, you can use herbs, you can use an anti-parasitic synthetic drug, which, you probably should. If you're that infested, you should do herbs, you should do anti-parasitic synthetics, you should do all of it if you're really this sick like I was. I rotated. When I first found out in July of 21 that I had parasites, and that was one of my root causes, I was shook. And I immediately went to TikTok, and that's how I went viral. And that's why I'm where I'm at now, because the video hit 1 million views in 2 hours.
Because you're not the only one.
Right.
So talk about that.
All those comments, right? Yeah. They were just pushing the video more and more. And then one would comment, and then other people would comment. And then I read every comment. There's like 7,000 comments or something in that video now. I read all of them. That's how I was able to develop what I'm doing, because the community came together, and my video was 60 seconds. All of this is over one 60-second video, and I had 10,000 followers. I think I had 9,599 or something crazy. It was very low. And by the next morning, I had like 200,000. I mean, it was just insanity. And I was building my log home at the same time, living in our travel trailer while building our log home. And we were teaching people about mushrooms and building a log home. So it wasn't like this was my space, Right. It was just like I did a 60-second video, and I said, I've been in Western medicine for over 18 years and I've never dewormed myself until now. And it was like I was in so much pain and I couldn't get an answer. I hadn't gone to the bathroom for 30 days, gone poop for 30 days. It was so uncomfortable. I could not get any of my surgeons, which I say surgeon because I had a surgical team, and my doctors, I changed insurance, and my doctors kind of just threw their hands up and they were like, we don't really know what to do with you. And this is the way you're going to live for the rest of your life. And I'm like, this is not the way I'm going to live for the rest of my life. I'm going to dig in and figure out what's wrong with me. And so in 2019, that's what I decided. My husband and I sold our house. We quit our careers, and we went out to our recreational property to build a log home and to either say goodbye to me. We had already come to grips. We were getting our affairs in order. I was not in good condition, and my husband became my caretaker. And when we got out there in 2019, I realized that my health was really bad. And so my husband and I just really came to the decision that like he would be able to work on the log home when I died, and that he would be able to get just some job because we had saved enough money to allow him to finish the log home, and he could just go get like, I don't know, some job like at the grocery store if he wanted, right? Like he wouldn't
Yeah.
have to go and work really hard. He could have some years to grieve. Like we literally set all of it up. Yeah. So when I started the journey of healing my body, it wasn't just I found out I had worms. It was I started doing mushrooms, and I was doing 6 to 8 hours a day of meditation and trying to figure out my mind and trying to figure out, okay, I need to get off big pharma. They wanted to diagnose me with Parkinson's. And I was like, listen, I'm 40. I don't need that label yet, right? Like there's no way. What else could this be? So I was like, let's start peeling the onion. Let's start figuring out what's wrong with me, because they're not going to do it for me. I have to do this. I have to put in the effort. So I spent a good year. We grew mushrooms ourselves, because, you know, the DMs and Insta, you just never know who to trust. Now I have really trustworthy people if you want to do mushrooms in my profile. I've gone through all these people. I've done their mushrooms. So I just really needed to find out what was wrong with me. And after almost a year and a half, I did. And it was just a parasite cleanse really like enlightened me even more and released flukes, pinworms, and roundworm into the toilet within 3 days of me doing my first cleanse. And then I found out later I had Cryptosporidium parvium, which is parvo, which we got from our water, and our water is contaminated in the state of Washington. And so there was a lot of like moving parts that happened.
So
I know it's a lot.
well, no, like you start to get to the point of the story where like we're preparing for me to pass, because this is nothing is going according to any plan that would ever be, you know, laid out for anybody. And then traditional medicine, you know, I really believe everyone thinks that their doctor is looking for the root cause, and they're just not. Like they're not at all. And the example that I'd like to give is, you know, if you're on statins, the only thing that I can promise you, I can't promise you anything else, but the only thing that I can promise you is your body does not have a statin deficiency. Right? Like, right. You're not deficient in statins and you're fixing the problem by applying statins, right? There's things to jump into. And so you're at your wit's end. How did you get to the parasites? I think I saw in an interview, you were talking to some of your friends, you know, your kind of medical practitioner friends, and they're like, ignore it. Talk about that piece of it.
So about 5 years before, in that particular year, I had a weird spot in my breast and had to go in for a mammogram, which now I know you guys don't need to comment. I get it. I understand now, but I come from Western medicine, so there's still some good to it, right?
Yeah.
And so I had a spot, and then I went to get my woman time, you know, because like you still should get those even if you have a hysterectomy a couple of times a year. And so I went, or, you know, a couple times, once a year or two or whatever. Anyway, so I went in and there was a spot and they wanted to biopsy it, but they didn't have time that day to biopsy it. So they said, come back in 10 days. And I looked at my doctor and I said, do you think it could be like pinworms? Because like I'm like having some itching during the full moon. I have like flares. And she's like, no, you're in a first world country. There's no way you have parasites, Kim. And then she stopped. She goes, well, I mean, I did go to Bali and I had pinworms once. I'll have you come back in 10 days and we'll biopsy and we'll see what it is. Came back, nothing was there. There was nothing there. But there wasn't anywhere for me to go and like do any cleansing. There was like a colonic place, but you know, it was like, I wasn't involved in any of this. I didn't have any knowledge of that. And so I remember because I did a screenshot on my phone of wormwood and then colonics. And then I just, you know, they told me you don't have worms in my mind. And the worm said you don't have them. But I also was living in mold, and a lot of people that have worms also have mold poisoning. So it was really like changing my whole mind and who I was to my core, because that's what happens to this physical body when it's involved with environmental toxins. And so, you know, that was like 5 years before. I also came across a document in 2016 that talked about parasites and endotumors and how they look very similar in form as a malignant tumor. And so I had kind of had that in the back of my mind at one point. but really it was TikTok. When I went on TikTok and I was thinking about it, I was scrolling with purpose and I came across this gal's TikTok that said she almost unalived herself over worms. And I
Hmm.
stopped for a second and, like, all the flood of information started coming. It was just like this instant download. And I was like, I got to try it. Because
Yeah.
I mean, at this point, I was doing better. I was on a lot of functional mushrooms. I felt a little bit better, but my skin was a wreck. I couldn't lose any weight, and my anxiety was still off the charts. And so but I was off of my Klonopin after being on that for 22 years. At the top level, you could be at 4 milligrams. I was off of that, so I was doing better, but I wasn't like doing as good as I should be. And so I thought, I'm gonna give it a try. I'm gonna give it a try. And so within 3 days, literally, I looked in the toilet and I was like, what is that? I'm like, this is crazy. What is all that? Things were moving. Yeah, it
Wow.
wasn't good. I even did a
Yeah.
fulvic soak where they came out of my feet, and I have that on video.
And that went onto social media. So I don't know if you have any pictures available. You probably saw me kind of diligently figuring something out. So I think we'll
Here, I can show
do.
you guys what I used to look like, just to kind of give you an idea of how sick I really was.
Yeah.
That's how sick I used to be. So,
Wow. That's a little different.
yeah,
And you were doing all the things at that time, right? Like you
yeah.
were focusing on eating good, like trying to get good exercise, everything that people were probably assuming you weren't doing, you were actually
Yes,
doing.
I was doing it. And, we had dogs, and pets are a number one way to catch a parasite. They're outside, they're eating other dogs' poo, they're licking themselves, they're drinking out of puddles, they're walking on the dirt. A lot of reasons why beaches don't want dogs on the beach is because they carry parasites. So,
Uh,
and you walk out there barefoot. So it's like, really, this is a thing. It's just not a thing in Western medicine countries. And because I have my own product and my own company, I see where we sell the most. It's Canada, the United States, and Australia. We're Western
wow.
medicine countries. We don't believe, for some reason, that parasites and worms, which they're two different things, parasites and worms can get into our bodies. But other countries like Mexico, Guatemala, Jamaica, they know this is a thing, and they actually practice deworming regularly.
Mm,
So I use the word cleansing because sometimes, depending on what social media account you have, worms and parasites are actually like shadowed. And
wow.
so they're going in and cleansing their systems, sometimes monthly. Jamaica uses an herb called the bush, and they drink a tea every month. So it's like, when you're looking at the world, they know this is an issue. Japan has an entire museum set up to worms, human worms. Like, you can go in and see all the different human worms that can be in your body.
Yeah. So I just pulled up an image of pinworms, right? I don't know
Uh-huh.
if this is a fair representation. You would know better than me. This looks unpleasant, right?
Yeah.
So this is something, and this was the first thing you actually found a doctor who had had it once, right? Because she
Yep.
had visited a foreign country,
Dr. Giles.
and so then that was probably like the little peek of the door that opened it. It's like maybe this is it. You were already clearly going down that path.
Well,
And then I
so I
pulled.
met her in, this was in July of 21. And then I actually sent my stool off to an independent lab as well as LabCorp, and LabCorp came back negative, and the independent lab that goes to Mexico is actually the one that gave me the actual, like, this is what's wrong with you. And then I was already seeing Dr. Giles for some PTSD, and I said, hey, by the way, this is what's going on with me as well. Is there a way that you can help me with this? And I had already done a couple of cleanses at that point. So, but those look more like roundworm in my opinion, but they're not always in our gut. And I think that that's the part that is the most difficult for people to understand, is that they actually burrow into our blood, our tissue, and our muscle. But they start sometimes in our gut, but something like a hookworm or a whipworm actually can start from the skin and go in. So those to me look more like a whipworm. They're definitely a larvae. They're definitely starting to grow out. They come in a hardened egg. That's why they're really hard to get rid of. That's why when you take my kit, the Parafite kit, we expose them more. And yeah, it's so good. So we
We can stop
hand make
sharing.
those. We're third party tested. We make them in large batches in our own manufacturing warehouse that's 10,000 square feet in Arkansas. And each one of those tinctures has a purpose. And each one of those tinctures purpose because I went through this on camera, listening to my community, telling me what I needed to do each step. That's how I created this. So I first just did a parasite cleanse. So in that
All right,
case, it would be
so
Parafite.
hold on. So
Yeah.
we're going to get to this, right?
Yeah.
So,
I just
so
get
you
excited
do,
because I love it.
yeah, no, it's awesome. So you ask this physician, I think, to help you, that you were working with PTSD, which the tie-in between parasites and PTSD and kind of really mind control is mind numbing. So like you start this first cleanse, like what starts happening? How do you start feeling? When do you go from that previous picture that you showed to the the healthy person that you are today?
So I would say probably within like 6 months. Not healthy where I'm at today, but healthier where I could actually have some uh, less brain fog and my cognitive skills were better. Where before I was at a point where I was nonverbal. I had a mini stroke, and so I had to have some help getting back, like feeding myself and showering. And so there were a lot of things that happened because of medications and environmental toxins, but she helped me mentally get to a point where I was able to like do all of these things, right? And she was the only one that would believe that we had them in our water because I showed her. Like I showed multiple physicians the tests that came back positive, and no one wanted to touch me. No one wanted, because it wasn't just me, it was Jeremy too, right? Because we live in the same house, you share the same microbiome. He had parasites as well. So it was like no one really wanted to take us on. And 4 years ago, this was still a very taboo subject. I feel, in my opinion, I have enlightened and I've been so loud amongst Western medicine as well as natural doctors and functional medicine to say, like, go to the doctor and tell them you just want to do this. And like, if they don't, then buy my kit, right? Because
Yeah,
anybody can buy my kit. You don't need a practitioner. And I did
yeah,
that on purpose
yeah.
because the everyday person nowadays, they don't want to go to the doctor. They want to be able to kind of have that medical freedom. And
Well,
that's really important.
and they may not get heard, right? Like
They're
what you're
not going to get hurt.
describing is you're not going to get heard in this
Right.
particular situation.
Exactly. And why not just take some herbs? Like
Yeah,
if there it's formulated to help you with heavy metals, candida, parasites, and a binder, and you can just open up that box with instructions and be able to do it yourself and see worms, you've just validated yourself. And that's all people want. They just want validation. They just want people to hear them when they say, I don't feel good. Something else is going on. Why am I chronically ill? What is my root cause? And you literally take a kit for 30 days and you poop out worms. That is one of your root causes, you
yeah,
know?
yeah.
So it really is important for people to take their health in their own hands. I think that we've just been too trusting with these very precious bodies of ours. And that was something I had to realize as well.
Hey, super quick break from the podcast. Hopefully you're loving it. This is a way you can support the podcast and take advantage of a great offer. We're offering 50% off of one of our MCT bottles. MCT is an amazing oil. Add the ESS 60 molecule to it. It's even more amazing. All you got to do is leave a review on iTunes, send us a notification that you've left that review. We'll get you a coupon code that'll get you 50% off of our MCT oil and free shipping. Back to the podcast.
I think one of the things, you start thinking about all of this heavy lifting, right? Mental and emotional lifting. I mean, you're talking with somebody about PTSD in the middle of all this. So through this cloud of fog, you're trying to discern the truth. Like that, it probably would have happened faster if it weren't so cloudy. Let's talk a little bit about how and I know there's a great example with like cat and mice. Like there's also another one with my son talks about it all the time. There's a zombie bee situation or hornet fungi situation, but talk about how these, I think, at least in this circle, right? And so maybe not people listening to this podcast necessarily, but we become aware that our gut biome is communicating and driving things. And anybody
Yeah.
who's ever really changed their diet and go like, wow, I'm no longer craving whatever it is. Maybe it's alcohol, maybe it's cakes, maybe it's sweets. Like you start to understand that it's driving a lot of things. These parasites can actually drive a lot of things. Talk a little bit about that.
So you think you're craving salt, sugar, and if you are like an extreme amount or after 7 p.m., you have a parasite. And you could have anything from candida, which we all have yeast in our body, and especially during the holidays, because we all eat a lot of sugar, it can develop into something called candida, which is a parasite. A parasite definition is anything that feeds off the host, or in Latin terms, an unwanted dinner guest. And so they're stealing up to 90% of our nutrients at any part of our body. That means that those nutrients are no longer serving your organs that need it, right? It's no longer giving that positive energy to the organs in order to operate correctly, causing fatigue, causing brain fog, causing you to have skin issues, eczema, psoriasis. Your body cannot function at a 10% level of nutrients. And that's not just nutrients, that's supplements, that's medications. You know, they hold heavy metals. So there's a theory that we need them because they are holding those heavy metals. But if you eat something like pineapple or papaya seeds or pumpkin seeds and it dumps the parasites, it kills them off, they're going to dump the viruses, they're going to dump their eggs, they're going to dump their heavy metals into your body. And then your body is going to react and be like, oh my gosh, what am I doing? And then you go into fight or flight because it's trying to push everything off. And that's what we were trying to get under control for me with my PTSD is why am I in fight or flight? Why have I been in fight or flight for years? Years. I grinded my teeth, parasites. My skin was a wreck, parasites. I didn't go poop, parasites. All of the different levels of symptoms that I was having all kept pushing to parasites. And so it was just kind of like, oh, I'm going to finally do a cleanse. And, you know,
and the example of parasites actually kind of really driving and controlling our mind, like I think that's fascinating as well.
So toxoplasmosis gondii is the one that we like to give an example of just because everybody does know that you're not supposed to scoop cat poop when you're pregnant. But that's really for all humans. I particularly thought, oh, so only pregnant people can get toxo because I didn't really put two and two together because there was never really like a story or an understanding. So what happens with toxoplasmosis gondii is that it's actually found in a rat or a mouse. The mouse is actually controlled by toxo for a few things. One, it's sexually attracted to the cat's urine. And so it goes to the cat, which we all know that mice and cats are not supposed to hang out together. But because, right?
Well, Tom and Jerry says they're supposed to. They're just supposed to fight all the time.
That's because I think that, what is it? Was it Jerry is the cat? Or Tom?
Tom is the cat. Jerry's
Jerry had toxo. I mean, honestly.
So we've been watching an infected rodent.
Totally. Hanging out with the cat. So the reason why it does this is because not only is it attracted to that cat, but the next level of toxo is actually inside of a cat's guts enzyme. And so in order for it to fully develop, it needs to be eaten by the cat. So the mouse goes to the cat eats it, and then that's your level of toxo. So it controlled the mouse's mind. It said, go to the cat and get eaten because that's what you need to do. And so the mouse,
it'll be good for me.
Totally. So then it actually gets pooped out by the cat, or some bacteria can actually, like, you know, when they lick you or whatever. So then it goes into the human, and then the next stage of toxo goes into the brain. And toxo can cause many, many different issues, but the two that have been studied is you have no fear. It takes the fear away, and you are like overly sexual. And so they found crotch rocket riders that had died. They did an autopsy on them, and and they almost all came back positive for toxo. And fighters go to Mexico to get toxo so that they're not afraid to get the crap kicked out of them.
Wow.
That's how much it controls you. So if you think about that little control, when you get candida, it's like, feed me, and it can control you and tell you what to eat. So, and roundworm especially like sugar. So it's like, if you think about all of these little things, especially Toxoplasmosis gondii, because we all do know the cat parasite, right? So you got to think of how easy it is to get into your brain and change who you are and how you think. And it might not be you. People that are out sleeping around, it might not really be you sleeping around. You may have toxo. They say that like 60% of Americans have it. And at one point, it was like 75% of French people had it.
Oh, that's where the reputation comes from.
Yes. No, for real.
Yeah.
For real. They have a ton of schistomiacin in France, and they had a ton of toxo. I think it's down to like 50% now. Don't quote me on these percent.
Yeah.
But yeah, like this is a real thing.
So Pepe Le Pew, definitely toxo.
For sure. Oh my God. For sure. All of these cartoons. Oh man. For real.
So there have to be some safeguards that we have as humans against these. So what do we normally do, right? Are we just left to them, and the only solution is, I think you mentioned a particular herb out of Jamaica, the bush, right? Is that the only way, or do we have natural defense systems that can get broken down and make us more susceptible?
Well, for what we recommend, which is the Paraphyte kit, you do it at least 3 to 4 times a year. Seasonally is what we recommend, because you're creating an inhospitable environment in your body that then if you did get in contact with them, they're not going to want to stay in you. And that's the whole purpose of it. Because when you're eating fish, especially salmon, actually all fish, I live in Seattle and I have gone and interviewed the Pike Market people that throw the salmon.
Yep.
They looked at me like, yeah, all fish have worms, Kim. And it's just how close to the belly is the cut of the fish. That's where more parasites live. And they do say that around 10,000 eggs can live inside of 1 square inch of a salmon. So if you think about their bottom feeders, they're in the water. I show those videos where the bears have the tapeworm growing out of their bum, and they eat cleaner food than we do, but they also eat garbage. So it's kind of a toss up. But if you know that you're eating questionably, like sushi, salmon, you're not cooking your meat, you're not cleaning your produce, you're coming in contact with parasites. It's inevitable. The human body and parasites have lived amongst each other for thousands and thousands of years. But we, as Western medicine in the last 100 years, have just ignored it. But prior to that, they knew they needed to take Oregon grapefruit. They knew they needed to take usnea and lungwort lichen. They know this stuff. Like, you just have to dig for it. And that's what I did. So while I was sick, and while I was going viral, and while I was living in the mold, I really was like behind the scenes studying what our ancestors did, what other countries did. The Amish, even though they're in our country, they are kind of their own medical world. They don't come to Western medicine. So what do they do? And Mexico, what did they do? Germany, what did they do? So I really dug into multiple different countries' medicine to see, how do they use wormwood? How do they use Oregon grapefruit? How did they get rid of eggs? How did they break the biofilm? Because all of these things, you guys are just now hearing it maybe for the first time, but this is like parasitology that they have kind of thrown out and said, it's not our country though, right?
Yeah. Wow. All right. So it's a struggle. You've got to do the right things. We kind of naturally don't do the right things in the United States. You've gone through this horrific experience. You come out on the other side. What exactly drove you to put together the kit? Why'd you want to have the impact that you wanted to have? Why did you want people to send you photos of gross stuff coming out of their bodies? That was the real core, right?
Who else would get them? When I found the stuff, I was like digging on Google, and I was getting all sorts of wrong answers. And then when I started going viral, people were like, oh, go look here for pictures. And then I just became friends with people. And I had this one gal, she was amazing. Her name was Samantha. And she said, send me your pictures. So I sent them. And then she started to kind of show me how to identify parasites. And then I've got a free identification book. It's like 600 pages long. I have over 20,000 parasite pictures on my phone. So if you pick up my phone, you're going to want to give it back to me because it's gross.
And then wash your hands.
Totally. Like
is a
maybe
good
wash
plan
your
anyway.
hands and your eyes and like really rinse out the most you can, because you might feel a little dirty after, because it's like poop and my husband won't even look over at my phone when I'm scrolling through, because he's like, oh yeah, no, Kim.
Yeah, I don't need that.
Yeah, right. He's like, no. Okay, so I decided to do this one because there just isn't anybody out there like this. And so when I started this journey, I was lucky because I was going viral. So companies were sending me their product. And one thing a lot of people don't know about me is that I was very successful. And then as I got more chronically ill, I basically bankrupted me and my husband, because being chronically ill is very expensive. And we went out to our land in a travel trailer specifically because we literally had no money. We were on the government. We were assisting. Like, I was sick when everyone was in 2020. We didn't get unemployment. So we had just a small amount of money, and I could not afford to do all the things like Candida cleanse, parasite cleanse, heavy metal cleanse, and bind. And so as I was moving through this space and having companies send me their product, it became expensive for other people. Now, I was getting product, but when I would talk about it, I'd be like, all right, so this one's 30, this one's 100. By the time it was all said and done, it was around $250 to do a kit, piecemeal together. And then I was spending hours a day just talking about someone else's product. And so then I kind of was becoming their customer service, and I was asking, like, what are the natural ingredients? Like, you have them in quotation. I'd like to know exactly what they are. And they wouldn't release that information to me. And then I said, why are you using caramel coloring? When you soak the herbs, there is already a caramel color to it, or green, or just depending on what herb. Why are you coloring your product? And what are you using to do that? No answer. So you want me, as I'm telling people to have medical freedom, sovereignty over their own bodies, we should all know what we're putting in our bodies. You want me to tell them no worries because it's you? I'm not doing that.
Yeah.
And so between that information and the cost, I got together with Erica, who is my business partner, and she runs the manufacturing facility in Jonesboro that we have, that's 10,000 square feet. And then her and I started to look at, well, we could just soak the herbs. Let me go find out how to do tinctures. Let me go and dig in. And because I come from mushrooms, that's how you make a tincture. And they're like the best professor you could have is mushrooms. And so I just started to look at the cost and how we could make it as natural. And it's organic. It's all natural. We soak our herbs for 5 to 8 weeks. We're third party tested. Like, we do it the right way. Not that everyone else isn't the right way, but we know we are. And so what I'm putting in my body and what I'm talking about and what I'm selling to people, I know, I'm confident, like, I stand behind it. I couldn't do that anymore with some of the companies that I was first talking about. And I don't want to take pills anymore. I take them when I have to. Tinctures are the best, especially for this situation, because they're getting right into your bloodstream. They're getting immediately, they're bio ready, right? They're right in there. They're not fighting with anything. They're absorbing immediately, and they're getting to work. And so I know other companies, which I love other companies, but I know other companies are using pills, and you have to take like 26 a day. And then you can't have children do it because you can't break, like the tincture, you could do 5 drops, 10 drops, 15 drops. A pill, you can't do that with.
Yeah.
And so there's no kid ones out there. There's no, nut-free ones. We're nut-free as well. So we have both options. That's not an option because black walnut hull is usually the only thing that you take with a parasite cleanse. But we also added in Oregon grapefruit and clove, which helps kind of do the same thing if you can't take black walnut hull pushing out those eggs. So I found that each one of the ailments that I went through while I was cleansing had their own frequency. And so I decided to find which ailment needed which herb for that frequency. So very similar to the way an opera singer sings and her voice gets to the same frequency as the glass and then shatters the glass. If you think that with frequencies with herbs and ailments, so I know that cilantro can go in and help detox heavy metals. So I brought cilantro into our metal flush because when you're deworming, you're going to off them and they're going to drop those heavy metals. So you need something before the heavy metals get absorbed back into the body and create a heavy metal, poisoning. You got to sweep them out with something. And so I was like, cilantro. Like that's the most gentle heavy metal detox herb. Usnea is not used a lot in society, so it hasn't been over consumed by a lot of people, and that helps with viruses and bacteria. So when you're killing a physical thing off in your body, it's dumping eggs, black walnut hole. It's dumping bacteria and viruses, usnea. It's dumping heavy metals, cilantro. So you bring in that frequency to match that ailment and you make it go like boom, right? And so then you got to bind. And that's another thing that was missing out in society is that you have to bind, whether you're doing synthetic, which there's so much talk of Ivor out there, no talk of a binder when you're doing all these synthetic antiparasitics that are just blowing up all over the place the last couple of months. No one talks about you have to bind. It doesn't matter what you're taking. They're releasing this crap into your body no matter what you're taking. So unless you're going in and strategically removing all of the things that they're going to dump, because they're garbages. They hold on to their dumpsters. They're dumpster fires, man. They're holding on to all of this. So you're going in and you're just removing, and with some of these synthetics that are all over the internet as well, they're only treating the frequency of a roundworm, tapeworm. Ivor doesn't treat pinworms. So now you've just dusted up pinworms in your body. So now you might have a pinworm infestation that you might not have had because you've just removed all of its roommates.
All of its competition.
Yeah. Totally. And so there's really a system you have to do when you're deworming, when you're heavy metal cleansing. You can't just go in and remove the heavy metals. It's going to remove the weight. If you have physical worms, it's going to remove that weight. And then you're going to have them just floating to go ahead and like thrive in other places.
Wow. So you've put together this kit. It's pretty amazing. You said to kind of rebuild all of this kit was about $250, right? I think you said.
And we charge $100.
You charge $100 for this fancy kit. That's pretty, that is pretty amazing. And you say you should do it about 4 times a year?
Correct.
3 to 4 times
minimum.
a year?
And we did that so because we've all been somewhat indoctrinated with Western medicine, we need instructions. We need to know when we got to do it, when we don't. I set it up because that is the way we all think. And then when you get into this a few times, you're like, oh, wait, like I don't feel well still after 30 days. I should keep going. So it really expands your mind on how your body should feel. And then you start to take over your own medical freedom and allow yourself to go in and do what you feel is right.
Very good. We just have a couple minutes for wrap-up questions. What are some of the, like your story, right, from the photo to where you are today? Absolutely amazing. What are some of the kind of amazing stories that you're getting feedback from your customers?
So my first amazing story is actually who makes our bottles. Well, the guy that sells us our bottles, his name is Tyler, and I do have permission to talk about him. A few years ago when I first found his company, him and his wife had been trying for a child. And again, I don't have children. I had a hysterectomy. I was very ill. So anybody that I can assist to help like detox their body and feel a little better, I'm going to do that. So I said, Tyler, why don't you and your wife just try the kit? Like there's no promises. I'd never had any of this happen to me when I first started Parify selling to people. And so he tried it, and they have a 2-year-old boy now. And remember, this was 2 years ago, and they had been trying for 3 years to have a child. when your body is not trying to support another living thing inside of it, and then you're trying to put a real living thing inside of it, it's going to respond. And so they had done it. And then 6 weeks later, she got pregnant. So that's happened a few times with a few of our customers that have come back. We have a lot of skin people. A little 4-year-old, I have a picture of her before and after. She had steroid withdrawal, which just really wreaks havoc, like thick callus rash and all over her whole body, and it's gone. After 3 Parafite kits, it went completely away because it really was her gut. It was stemming from her gut. She had steroid withdrawal, which is her liver being taxed, and so really, it really goes in and supports. We use dandelion root because we really need you to support your organs in order for them to go into the killing phase. You don't want to stay in a killing phase. You want to make sure you're supporting things while you're in a killing phase. What
And
else? Lots of those. Yeah,
I'm just looking. So these are the instructions, right?
correct. Instructions, what you can expect, what herb is killing what it's assisting, why we put it in there, how we make it, because we really do. And there's more videos. We just got back from Jonesboro, which is literally last night, which is where our shop is. So everything's made in the United States. And it's really amazing when you actually get a chance to see exactly what it looks like. We have these huge jars just full of herbs and soaking in alcohol. And then we have these huge like barrels that we're making teas in with herbs. And, it's really cool. You walk in and it smells amazing. So, and then we hand package everything. So it really is kind of a cool thing because we brought in this amazing business into Jonesboro, which is a very small town. And then we also are keeping it in the United States. And then we distribute it around the world. We're one of the only companies that ship parasite cleansing around the world. So it was all of the targets that when I first went viral, I just made this list and I'm like, people from Canada need this, people from India, they order from us. So we really do buy. Like, it's crazy how many people really just want to get to the root cause. And this might not be your only root cause. For me, it was not, but it was like, I needed to start somewhere. And I know chronically ill people. I've been chronically ill my whole life. My mom was chronically ill. She takes a kit. She got off of oxygen and blood thinners, not saying this is just what my mom and I do with my doctors. And so it's like, why not give it a shot? Why not try? Because it's not going to hurt you. It's only going to help you. There's nutrients in there that you didn't even know you weren't getting that are going to boost you.
Any last question before we get to the wrap-up questions? Any kind of negative side effects that people might need to be aware of?
Well, we call them die-offs. So when you're offing them, they're dropping those viruses, they're dropping their eggs because they want their generations to continue. They're dropping bacteria. So you could get flu-like symptoms, headaches, constipation, the runs. You can have skin issues during it. It will clear up. You can take breaks. You can email us. We answer every email, every DM, every comment across all of our platforms. We have over 1 million followers when you add all of our numbers together across our platforms. And we have a team that goes in and makes sure that you understand what's going on, and you can email us. We have free ebooks in our profile that are fast track guides, drainage. We've got a lymphatic kit dropping in in 2 weeks. And, because these things are so important for you to have that medical freedom while you're in your medical awakening, because we are if you look at everything we're going through right now, people are waking up and understanding their bodies better. And that's medicine. So
that's awesome. All right. We'll give links where people can connect. But right now, let's get our wrap-up questions. Kim, do you have a target age that you want to live to?
Oh, I mean, at least 90. I think it would be cool to see what 90 looks like.
90. And then how long do you think humans can live?
Oh, I think that if we started them out right and the environmental toxins were shielded and you were really conscientious, I think we could live to be like 110, 120.
Okay, 110, 120. All right. What are 2 to 3 protocols, habits, mindsets? Let's call them shortcuts because everybody likes shortcuts that you would share about longevity and having a long lifespan.
Well, I think that biohack stacking is going to be your best bet. I particularly like doing something like the vibration plate standing in front of my red light. I also like doing ozone inside of a sauna. And I do red light inside of my HBOT. I actually have an HBOT at my house because I love hyperbaric chamber oxygen therapy. I used to work in oxygen therapy back in my days when I was in my 20s. And it's just one of the most pivotal things that I've done for my health. So I think that anytime you can, I don't have a lot of time in life. So anytime I can stack anything, like I'll work on my vibration plate in front of the red light. And sometimes I'll like do the red light holding my phone. Like, I mean, we're just nuts.
Yeah. So I like the concept biohacking stacking. So vibration plate and red light, ozone and sauna, and HBOT. What was the thing you'll do?
HBOT and red light. I'll
And
do
red light.
HBOT red light, and then I always add in something like Aphora water, which is a medical grade water that's like 8.0 pH with hydrogen, oxygen in there. So it kicks it to a higher level. So anything you can add, I like to do ozone water in my water pick so that it helps with bacteria in my mouth, with cavities.
Yeah.
So anytime you can add that extra oomph in there.
Very cool. What are 1 to 2 things that you think people are getting absolutely wrong regarding longevity and a long health span?
I think right now they think that taking the synthetic antiparasitics is something. And I think that they're really causing more harm to their body.
Interesting. Excellent. How can people contact you, Kim?
Well, you can find me on every social media platform. Miss Rogers Hood, MRSROGERSHOOD is my handle. You can type Kim Rogers Worm Queen in Google and I pop up. And my website is rogershood.com. And on Instagram, I am missrogers.hood.
Excellent. And what in the near future are you excited about?
I get to meet you, which was which we didn't even know until today. Like we really run in the same circles. I love it.
Cool. Yeah.
Oh my God. It's been so much fun. I love everything you're doing. And it's just really nice to be able to talk with you and chat about all the cool things that we get to do behind the scenes. I'm on a couple of really awesome podcasts that are coming out. I'm just running with life. Like I got a second chance to really make a good impression and really be impactful. And I really want to kind of push some more medical testing. I believe that our country needs some medical reform. And if that's just doing medical testing, allowing us to have that freedom to go in and find accurate testing for parasites and mold, I think we would be in a lot better situation, like something once a year. I mean, it's just nuts. It's nuts that I had to like literally go outside of the country, stay in the country, but shit my poop outside of the country. It's just wild that we're here where we're at in the day and age. So I got a lot going on. I'm so excited about it all.
That is awesome. All right. So just Google Kim Rogers, Worm Queen. You'll find her, missrogers.hood on IG. And it's rogershood.com is the website. Kim, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me, Chris.
I hope you enjoyed this episode of the Live Beyond the Norms podcast. Make sure to subscribe and follow. Also, make sure not to be that guy, the guy sharing this podcast with people who are not interested in living beyond the norms. If you would like to learn more about the ESS60 molecule, the molecule responsible for the single longest longevity experimental result on mammals in history, a full 90% extension of life, visit myvitalc.com. That's myvitalc as in carbon.com.